Okay, well this week on Whiteboard Friday, I want to talk, I don't think I've ever done one of these before, but anyway, I want to speak about climate change for a couple of reasons. One, we've got this conference coming up in December in Paris, which hopefully will give life to the policy response to climate. If you remember, Copenhagen was a bit of a disaster. And the other reason is I've actually been doing a bit more work on it. The last time I really looked at this was the 2009 book we did called Poles Apart, which was a lot of fun, and that was all about the science and what the evidence was that the global climate change was anthropogenic. But anyway, as you all know, we're well into now, at least politicians saying they want to do something about it. The difference being that they're actually doing bugger all. So that's what Paris is about. But also I've just come back from Greenland. I've been up there for a few weeks. It's pretty freaky up there actually, especially up the east side, which is the icy side, where you see this perverse vision of icebergs coming down fjords past green fields. I've never seen that before because I'm sort of used to seeing the icebergs down in Antarctica. But up there they tell me that that scenario of icebergs, of glaciers calving and sending icebergs down the fjords is moving further and further north as the melt accelerates, so that you will see sheep sort of there looking at the icebergs. It's just too perverse to really talk about. But what I want to do, so I'm going to do a series of these, I guess, over the up until December and maybe past December. What I want to talk today about, though, is just give a bit of an intro to where they seem to be at. And as you probably all know, it's all about this 2 degrees. Anything over 2 degrees of warming is regarded as pretty dangerous and unpredictable. And in terms of amplifier effects coming through and us getting stuff past tipping points and all that sort of thing. So 2 degrees is regarded as the limit as to what humankind, current structures at least, can get by with without too much unpredictable disturbance. And that last IPCC report, number 5, it's a couple of years ago now, isn't it? That was had different scenarios, but it was saying 1.5 to 2 degrees of warming, depending on the carbon emission rate, by 2100. So it's not far away. Now, the last time we had 2 degrees was a little before my time, where the global temperature was 2 degrees. It's actually got it here. It was in the mid-Pliocene period, which is 3.5 million years ago, so well before humankind existed. And at that stage, in the middle of that period, it was 2 to 3 degrees actually warmer in the world. There was no ice around. The ice caps were all melted during that period. And one of the interesting things about that period is that the sea level is estimated to have been 20 metres higher than it is today. So I went to this lecture given by Steve Rintoul, who's a pretty well-known and respected climate scientist from Tasmania, Australia actually, and been doing a lot of work down in Antarctica. So I just want to sort of talk about Steve's and his associates' latest work. So just getting back to this Pliocene period, 2 degrees warmer, which is what the IPCC is saying, we'll be sort of approaching by 2100, depending on our carbon emissions trajectory from here. We'll talk about that in later presentations. But if you look at the sort of ice around that we know from observational data is melting, we've got Greenland, which I just talked about. We've got the West Antarctic ice shelf, of course, where it's really fast. And then there's the thermo-expansion effect. As the sea gets warmer itself, it gets, it expands. when the models they've got of all those effects, when you add them together, only give you sort of 10, 12 metres of sea level rise. So trying to use the Pliocene as an analogy for what we might be looking at after 2 degrees, the scientists have been sort of scratching their head, where the hell's the other 10 metres of sea level going to come from? They know where the ice is that would do that, and it's in East Antarctica. But as a lot of you will know, East Antarctica, if anything, surface temperatures has been getting colder, not warmer. And in particular, there's been more precipitation, snow, and the height of the ice cap at that side of the continent has been rising. So up until now, no one has really factored in East Antarctica melting, because the observational data has been going the other way. So this is where Steve's work comes in, because for the first time ever over this last summer, they've managed to get one of the icebreakers down to the foot of the Totten Glacier, which is one of the largest glaciers on the East Antarctic side. Up until now, nobody has got there, because the ice sheet, sea ice, ice shelf and sheet, all that part, has been way too tough for the icebreakers to get in. But what they noticed about a year ago was a thin strip of water opening up at the foot of that glacier. The only problem was trying to get through the sea ice to get to it, to be able to take measurements. So anyway, this very last summer, they crashed and bashed their way for days through the sea ice, and they got there. Dropped their probes, did all that stuff, had to hurry because they've got to get out before it end up spending the winter there. And what did they find? They found that actually underneath the ice shelf, which is the floating bit over the water, the sea temperature is far, far warmer than they thought, and the shelf is actually melting, just as they've observed elsewhere in Antarctica, particularly West Antarctica, with the Pine Island Glacier being the fastest retreating. So previously, the assumption had been that the warm water, seawater, couldn't get in that far because it was all blocked and protected by the ice. But that appears not to be the case. And so now we have the secret unfolded, where the other 10 metres will come. So we can increasingly use the Pliocene analogy, at least with more and more confidence. So from the scientist's point of view, they're rubbing their hands with glee, of course, because it fills in a gap in the knowledge. From your and my point of view, bad news indeed. Next instalment in a week or two.